We don't know that in order to learn a language, we have to be consistent, and in order to achieve it, having a schedule can be super helpful. So today I'm going to share with you how to create a schedule that is practical, simple, and effective, so you can learn absolutely any language that you want. First, we need to know where we're at to know where we want to go. And the way that we do this is by doing a review of our languages in the different skills, what levels we're at, how do we feel with each of the different skill and each of the different languages that we learn. This is also a great time for you to look at your progress, look at previous videos, writing material, your books, your notebooks, everything that you've done so far, more or less. You don't have to go too deep into it, but just to see where you're at, what you've learned, and what you feel you're supposed to learn versus what you already know. Once we have reviewed where we're at, it's time to set our goals and decide where we want to be. The thing about goals is that you have to make them work for you. Different people have different things that inspire them. For me, mostly I like to think of situations in which I would like to be in, for example, watching a TV show without subtitles and understanding everything, or speaking with friends at a bar and people complimenting me on my accent. So that is a very practical example, situation-based example of a goal. But in other situations, we want more strict goals and more smart goals. So things that are way more specific, like completing a course that you've been working on that is very, very long. Or maybe it's based on process, like studying every day for 1 hour. Maybe your goal is not exactly about how much language you're going to learn, but how consistent you're going to be in your learning. And for those of you who learn languages as hobby, I think this is a very practical goal to set, because some of you come to me and are like, I don't know what goal to set, like I'm just learning for fun. Then set a goal that is based on studying every day or finishing a chapter of your book every week or something like that that is more completion based, so you can keep yourself motivated and still moving forward. Another things I like to do with my goal is to add a deadline. So I will normally create plans for 6 to 12 weeks. So at the end of the 6 of 12 weeks, I am supposed to complete that goal. I also need to make sure that it's achievable, and I recommend you really think this through, because if you set goals that are way too high in a very short period of time, it's gonna only harm you and it's only gonna stop you from continuing to learning. It's so much better to create a goal that you know 100% that you can achieve, that it still takes a little bit of challenge, that it still takes a little bit of work, but that is achievable within the time period that you set. Because that way, you're gonna be achieving milestones that are eventually gonna get you to that big dreamy goal that you eventually want to achieve, like fluency or confidence or whatever it is for you. And last but not least, I recommend you to keep your goals visible. I like to print my goals, make them pretty, print them and put them in my board, my vision board, which is next to my computer where I work and where I see it absolutely every single day of my life. That way I am reminded to study, and it kind of serves like a trigger to get myself to learn languages. It's important also to change them frequently, because then we kind of get used to having them there, so we start to ignore them. So every time that I feel like I've been ignoring language learning, I do this little switch of my goal, which maybe I change the color, maybe I just take it out and put it somewhere else. And that little action actually helps me be more consistent when I'm learning languages. Now you know where you're at and where you want to go. Now, what is in between is your schedule. And the reason why all of this is important is because if you don't know where you want to go, creating a plan or creating a schedule is going to be a little bit harder. So now let's talk about how we're going to go from point A to point B. And we're going to do this by picking the right resources for us. I always think that with language learning resources, less is definitely more. Having 1 or 2 great, amazing resources is going to be way more helpful than having 10 apps that are only gonna stress you because you feel like you need to do them all every day. I normally divide my resources into 3 categories. We have study resources, and this is where I'm very picky. I like to pick 1 resource, maybe 2 resources that are really good and that I know that help me improve, that match my style, so they are very immersive, they transfer very well to real life situations, and they are fun to use. Picking the right one is gonna make or break my routine, so this one's very important and I really like to think it through. I also have other types of resources that I'm not so picky about, and these are input resources and output, not so much resources but experiences. So when it comes to input, I will make a list of the books I want to read, or the movies I want to watch, or the series I want to watch. And just like I will do in my native language, where I have a to watch list or a to read list, I will have that also for my target languages. It's actually all just one big list with a lot of things. And whenever I want to entertain myself, I will pull out from this list in order to get more input in my target languages. If I am focusing, let's say, in Japanese and French, I will try to only watch things in Japanese and French, for example. It doesn't always happen like this. I'm not saying I'm perfect at it, but it definitely helps when I do it. And in output, I also make a list of like experiences I want to do or I want to complete with language learning. And these are meetups I want to go to, online courses or online exchanges that I want to participate in, lessons I want to follow, if I want to follow any in-person lessons so I can meet people, maybe going out with a friend where I know I will only speak my target language, or even things like journaling or writing in my target language. I also make a list of like all the things that I would like to include in my life using this language. And this is great because you are essentially making space for your target language in a way that is useful and that is real for you. So it's no longer just the book and the theory, but also the experiences. So 3 categories: a study, this is where you're very, very picky and pick only the best of the best. Input, this is where you basically pick the things that entertain you and that you find interesting. And output are experiences and connecting with other people through the languages that you speak. Essentially, these last 2 categories are about using the language in real life situations. And even if you're a beginner, you can do this at a smaller scale. Just test the water and see what works for you. And last but not least, make sure that all the resources that you choose you thoroughly enjoy, because that is what is gonna make you stay consistent throughout your whole plan or throughout your whole schedule. Now let's talk about the actual schedule, the actual time management that you're gonna be doing. First, you have to find the times where you're more likely to study. This is different for everyone, and even it might change for you. I've had periods of times where I've studied better at night, other periods where I've studied better during my lunch break, other periods that it's been in the morning. Right now, it's in the morning again, which I really like. And basically, you will know when is the best time to study when you have a time and energy. And I want you to think about the resources we just talked about a few minutes ago and spread them throughout the week. It is very tempting to try to do everything every day, but unless you have like 3 hours available every day to study, it's gonna be super difficult for you to fit everything in. So what I recommend you to do is to have like output days or community days where you just work on speaking, or input days where you just listen to, or maybe it's not days but hours where maybe you only do input at night and you only study in the morning. So essentially what you would want to do is to have different days for different activities. I will personally recommend you to study as much as you can, at least 4 to 5 times a week, and have all the other activities kind of like go around it. Maybe one day after you study, you do a little bit of output, maybe the next you do a little bit of input. I am not very strict of like Mondays I write and Tuesdays I listen. I just basically study, and after that I kind of feel like, what do I want to do? Unless I have like a scheduled lesson or something like that, where of course that is already set in, and then I will not study and basically just have a lesson. Now, something that people underestimate are breaks. I recommend you have breaks at least once a week. It doesn't mean that you're not gonna do anything with your target language, but maybe you just relax, you just watch movies, or you just listen to things where you don't have to think so much. And I will even recommend you to have long breaks for maybe 2 to 4 weeks where you just only study if you feel like it and only listen to the language if you feel like it. So you take a little bit off the pressure of yourself of always being on and always trying to learn more and more and more, and you give your brain a little bit of a break as well. And you're gonna find that when you come back, you're gonna be way more motivated and you're not gonna forget so much in 2 to 4 weeks if you have studied for, let's say, 2 months before. So trust the process, maybe don't lose entire contact with the language, but not be so strict in yourself and not have a schedule every time. Time off is gonna be so much beneficial if you want to continue learning languages long term. Now, a few tips about making your schedule stick, because if you're like me, you struggle so much with this. So make sure to keep it simple. After I do my whole schedule, or after I select when I'm gonna study, I always make sure that the activities and resources I'm gonna use are not too long to use or too many. So I will maybe, instead of doing 1 chapter a day, I will do half a chapter a day. Instead of trying to watch a full hour movie one day, maybe I divide it into smaller sections where it is less tiring for me to try to understand. Another important thing is to know how you deal with accountability. Some of us need more external accountability than others. Some people are very self-reliant and don't need anyone else to stick to a routine. But you need to know where you stand with accountability, whether you need a lot of it or not, or how much you need in order for you to stay consistent. Because if you're someone who essentially needs to always have other people to study, or you're very used to having accountability buddies or study buddies or friends who study together, then of course you have to take that into consideration when you're making your schedule and making sure that you are including accountability sessions or even studying with others throughout your week. And last but not least, you have to master your mindset and design your environment. Master your mindset is about trusting that you can do it, because it can feel overwhelming and frustrating sometimes to sit down and study. And also knowing that it takes a lot of time to get there. So it is okay to take breaks. It is okay to take it slow. There is no rush. So you do you. How fast you're gonna learn, that's only your business and no one else's. So if you haven't progressed that much in 1 year, who cares? And if you became fluent in 1 month, also who cares, right? You do you, whatever works for you. And when it comes to designing your environment, what I mean by that is for you to create a space where you study and to always have your books open or your language apps accessible, and basically make it easier for you and create less frictions to when you want to study. Now, if you think that this is all too much and you just want a simple blueprint on how to create a plan and how to create a schedule, definitely check out my language planners for 6 or 12 weeks, where you can basically just copy what I do, where you just basically have everything laid out for you and explained to you in audio and video, so you can fill in this plan as you want. There is the Notion version and the PDF version, whatever suits you. Great, so thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye bye!